Please don't go to sleep because I can see you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're in Coast Salish territories, that these are lands that have been defended by the Lekwungen people.
Led by Indigenous peoples and nations here and across Turtle Island, and a struggle to defend and tend to lands that continues today since millennia.
I came to Victoria from Italy with images of shipwrecks and an ongoing mass murder of migrants in the Mediterranean in my mind.
The government decided they would open up some land in Auckland for housing. They forgot it wasn't their land.
I also am here as an ally for all people who have been incarcerated, as someone who hasn't experienced incarceration myself. And not only people in immigration detention, which at any given moment there are about 500 or so across Canada in detention centers, in maximum security prisons, and has totaled over 100,000 since 2006.
And although businesses have argued that they need temporary foreign workers because there aren't enough Canadians willing to do the work, Parsha Walia has found that the temporary foreign worker program involves being tied to the importing employer, low wages often below the minimum, long hours with no overtime pay, dangerous working conditions, crowded and unhealthy accommodation, the denial of access to public health care and employment insurance, despite paying into those programs, and being virtually held captive by employers or contractors who seize identification documents.
Their response to that is a little bit like Stephen Harper's response. Oh, well, it's not really a priority at the moment.
So in terms of their concerns for the well-being and membership of migrants, and I'm not just talking about unskilled workers, I'm also talking about skilled workers, it's very, very little. And if you talk to government officials there, they'll tell you, if you say, well, why can't you give your workers citizenship? They're like, there's many workers in the world. If these workers demand too much, then we'll get more workers from elsewhere.
We pay so much just to work abroad. For women, it's usually salary deduction. We were indebted even before we left the country. You have to sign an agreement, otherwise no way to leave the town. And once you are abroad, then in the six to 10 months of your first employment, you will have to lose your money. Sometimes even until the 10% of your income. And there is no guarantee that you will have the job for the 2 years.
And I think that this tension between mobility and containment provides us with a conceptual and analytic thread we have to follow in our investigation of the relations between migration and contemporary capitalism.
The other thing they do is, oh, you made a bad choice. It's your fault you're poor.
When they choose to go to Dubai, they're really choosing from two worst options. They're choosing from the unfreedom of poverty over the unfreedom of servitude.
The rate of release, so the chances of you appearing in front of a board member and getting released is 15%.
The very constitution of so-called free wage labor, which definitely characterizes specific histories of capitalism, is to be understood as the result of a struggle where mobility and its control are always at stake.
They would fly, and when the Canadian officials got on the plane, they would circle back, do a low-level flight, and kick these people back out. This is what deportation from Canada to Somalia looks like, being kicked onto the tarmac in Kenya.
Canadian-born children are not counted in the statistics. They're free to go under the Canadian law. So what happens is that parents, and often this is a burden carried out by women, is that they have to make a decision between leaving their child in detention with them to keep them in a prison or to give them up to children's aid, which is an impossible decision.
I'm usually by nature optimistic, but I'm getting old and I'm running out of time. So I'm at a time in my life where I have to think, am I going to be optimistic like in the impatient sense? Or am I just going to cave in and be pessimistic and think, oh my God, I didn't have time to fix the world up? No, I'm going to be optimistic. I think there are a number of things that people can do and people do today that are helpful. I think the very existence of Indigenous peoples believing in themselves, believing in Indigenous knowledge, believing in the revitalisation of language and culture, believing that they are nations is a powerful sort of counter-hegemony to neoliberalism. I think the fact that every time Indigenous people encounter barriers, they assert concepts of Indigenous sovereignty, even when they are ridiculed, even when they are ignored, even when they are dismissed. They speak for and as Indigenous. I can't think of a lonelier but more courageous stand to make over hundreds of years.